Hello, y'all, and welcome back to today's video on Blue Dog Politics. And today we're going to be getting into the state of Virginia because I think this is actually going to be one of those critical states for 2020. Not necessarily because it's going to be a swing state or a huge battleground state, but I think what happens in Virginia will tell us a lot about what's going on with the electorate as a whole. Looking back at the last 6 presidential elections here in Virginia, we have it split half and half. Half went to Democrats, half went to Republicans back in the 96, 2000, and 2004 elections, and primarily with the 2000 and 2004 elections, Republicans won this rather comfortably. Dole ran a little bit closer, but that was due to a larger third party showing that election year. But we saw Bush winning these states handily, and we saw a massive swing from Bush in '04 to Obama in '08. We went from Bush +8 to Obama +6. It was the first time since 1964 that the Commonwealth had gone to a Democrat, and since then we've been seeing um, Virginia really perform strongly for Democrats, not only at the federal level, but for a multitude of statewide races. I want to say most, if not all, of the current statewide elected offices are held by Democrats in the state of Virginia. As you can see in 2016, Hillary Clinton won this by over 5 points. She actually did better than Obama did in 2012 and almost met his 2008 numbers. However, if you remember on election night, Virginia was one of those states we were watching closely for the majority of the night because it looked like she might not win it. And I think the timing of when we get a call in Virginia really does tell the story of what's going on in the larger picture of the election. Moving on over to really how I break down Virginia on election night. There's a lot to go over in this one graphic, so I'll talk through all of it. Uh, Firstly, Virginia is not likely to be as competitive this cycle as it was in 2006 and definitely not, or 2016, and definitely not in 2012. This has definitely become more of a safe Democratic state at the federal level. There is the outside chance Republicans could still do well, which we'll talk about in a second, but it looks like at least for this election, Virginia should be likely, if not safe, Democratic. Northern Virginia is what really carries the state. That is a very highly populated region of the state, and it's a very democratic area. The one thing with that, though, is that that area tends to report later in elections, on election night, reports later on in the evening. This state is likely to be called earlier than it was in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. So at the bottom, you'll see a little bit of a timeline I put together on election night, assuming we don't have to wait hours and days for mail-in votes to be counted. This were to be a normal election, or at least somewhat normal, resemble what we are used to. This is kind of the timeline I'm going to be looking at for Virginia. Polls close there at 7 o'clock. If we see either a poll closing call in Virginia or a call that comes really before 8 or 8:15, it's going to be a very early call. It's going to be a very good night for Joe Biden. That means Joe Biden is doing good in Virginia. He's doing good in a lot of the Republican areas that typically report first. And that should bode well for him in other states such as Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan, Ohio, other similar states with large populations and large areas of rural working class voters. Typically, though, we would expect to call this election cycle between about 8:30 and about 9:30 on the state of Virginia. The earlier, the better, but anytime in there typically means that Joe Biden should be on his track to an electoral college win. In 2017, when Governor Northam won big here in his first election for governor, that was called right at 8:15, 8:30. So, and that was in a very good year for Democrats. We saw Democrats sweep a lot of offices here in Virginia right on that cusp of that early call and normal call time. If we see a call between about 8:30, 8:45, and up until about 10:30, that's going to be kind of a late call, especially for this election cycle, and that could bode trouble for Joe Biden. Anything after 10:30, I think is going to be very late for a call. It's going to really show that there are some issues for Joe Biden, not only in Virginia, but in the electorate as a whole. This state was called for Hillary Clinton in 2016, right around 10:30 in the evening. She won the state by more than Obama did in 2012, but this state showed us that she was having issues with those rural working class voters. We saw Donald Trump leading in the initial tallies for the majority of the evening, up until right around 10 o'clock when the Northern Virginia county started to report, and it was then that we were comfortable to say that Hillary Clinton was going to win this state. Taking a look at the last 2 big elections in this state. First, we're going to look at the 2016 presidential and the 2017 governor's race. In the 2016 presidential, Hillary Clinton again winning the state between 5 and 6 points. We see lots of red out in the rural areas of the state, the western parts of the state, really west of Charlottesville, west of Roanoke. Donald Trump carried those counties handily by over 65 percentage points. We only had a few very dark blue counties, a couple of lighter blue counties around the major cities, but by and large, if you didn't know that the Arlington and Richmond areas held most of the state's population, you would assume that this was a Republican state. But it's those three counties in Northern Virginia. We're talking Loudoun County, Prince William, and Fairfax, along with Arlington and Manassas, that really helped to carry the state. About 30% of the state's population's up there, as well as down towards Richmond, and even the Norfolk region. It's kind of hard to see, but those counties just to the south of Norfolk barely went to Donald Trump. He didn't even carry a majority of the vote. But this is what 2016 looked like. Again, Hillary Clinton winning by over 5 points. And look at those vote totals. Hillary Clinton getting close to 2 million votes, Donald Trump getting close to 1.8 million. In 2017, we saw those vote totals go down. It was an off-year election. But if you look at just how the state changed as a whole, we'll go back one slide and forward one slide, just so you can see how much blue now shows up on the map. We see Virginia getting a lot more blue. Those areas around the DC metro area really turning out. We saw Governor Northam win here by over 9 percentage points over Ed Gillespie, who actually ran for Senate here just a few years prior and only lost that seat to current Senator Mark Warner by less than a percentage point. But we saw Governor Northam doing very well here. This was a complete rejection of Donald Trump, which would lead us to believe that Virginia should also vote Democratic by maybe close to the same margin, maybe a little bit closer, but definitely over 5 percentage points in 2020. So again, if we're looking at Joe Biden getting an early call in this state, Governor Northam got this call very early, around 8:15. That's boding well. Typically, it's going to be, and we will get the pen tool here going. Typically, it's going to be these counties out here that report first. And it's these three counties up in the northern part of the state that are reporting last. If Donald Trump is not really running away with this, if Joe Biden's keeping it rather competitive at the beginning of the night, then that's going to tell us that he's doing rather well in the state of Virginia. So this is going to be a close state to watch. I think that this is going to go to Joe Biden handily, but the size at which he wins it and how early the state gets caught on election night is definitely going to be telling on how the election is going as a whole and how Joe Biden is doing in those Rust Belt states and those states with large rural populations. Thank you for joining me here today. We're going to continue to watch everything. You can subscribe here on YouTube for the latest, my latest videos, and you can follow me over on Twitter at BlueDogPolitics for the latest information I have and the latest opinions I'm putting out there.